Hello everybody, Jamie from FM Scout. In today's video, we're going to be doing a training guide for Football Manager 2020. Now, I'm going to go through a few things. We're going to go through all the tabs. Kind of, if you feel like you want to take over training on this version of Football Manager 2020, maybe last year you didn't give it a go because it was quite a lot of information. Obviously, there's been a lot of guides on FM Scout and things like that I can really delve into the training this year. And, you know, hopefully I can pass my knowledge and tips on to you guys and things maybe you can look out for, things you should avoid doing, and that kind of stuff. First things first. So if we look at your training tab, which is just these little cones on the left-hand side, you will notice you've got, the first thing we're going to go through is the training responsibilities. So if you don't plan on doing your training, make sure you set your assistant manager to do the training for you. By default, I think it automatically sets kind of like, you know, some schedules and stuff like that throughout the season, but essentially you really want your assistant to do it. If you don't feel comfortable doing this, of course your assistant manager is fully qualified to run the training if you don't do it. He will obviously base the decisions on that kind of your tactics, the time of the season, so pre-season, early pre-season, late pre-season, of course, like fixture congestion, stuff like that. So he will do it based on kind of his attributes and preferences. But talking of that, like I say, if you need to change the training responsibilities, make sure you delegate straight away if you don't plan on doing any training. So you can see I've got Neil Cox at Notts County as my assistant manager. He's going to take over my training for me and look after it all. A lot of people do this. Let me know in the comments if you kind of do your own training, or this year you're maybe going to give it a go yourself. Hopefully I can give you some tips and we can go from there. But yeah, Neil Cox at the minute is taking over, so just press take control if you do want to take control of your training. The next thing I want to talk about is your assistant manager before we go into the complete training. So if you go to your assistant manager, so in terms of his stats, you need to have the right, if you're going to have your assistant manager doing your training, you need to have the right stats on his profile. So as you can see, Neil Cox isn't the best assistant manager for Notts County. His man management's low, his judging player ability and potential are low as well. I mean, his coaching stats are okay. He's more suited as a coach, I believe. Looking at his defending, his mental, you know, he's got good tactical. For this level, bear in mind we are in the National League as well, so... But also you want to look at his tactical style and his preferred formation and his playing style. So if you're playing a 4-4-2 and you bring in someone who's playing a 5-3-2, who's your assistant manager, always try and match your preferred formation to your assistant manager's preferred formation. It will make life a lot easier. Again, with his tactical style, try and go for the player or the assistant manager who's got the similar tactical style that you want to go down. But let's go into the training centre. This is your training hub, so this is where you will get all the information regarding your overview of your training. So we're going to call it the training hub. So you'll see it just right here. This is your kind of week. Weeks start from Monday and they go to Sunday. So you can see we're on the Saturday. It will highlight in blue just here what day we're currently on and what kind of we're doing. Of course, you'll see the date just here. It does match up to this. You've got 3 sessions, so you could do 3 sessions a day if you wanted to, depending on the club and whether it's part-time, full-time. I'm assuming you won't be able to do 3 sessions if you are a part-time club, but in the Premier League, stuff like that, potentially you could. But you can just kind of decide if you're having trouble doing a few bonding sessions or your team, the morale's quite low, you know, you can send them on community outreach, stuff like that to get them, you know, in the community and developing that happiness. So you can see right here, like I say, 3 sessions. You've got session 1, session 2, extra session. Also to note is you've got the intensity. So whenever there is a match game, you'll see the intensity is always the highest. So usually you tend to have a recovery day. I haven't set any schedules yet, so usually I would always kind of put a recovery day. I've literally just come onto the screen, but I would always put a recovery day the day after. I would not really have them doing much training the day after, of course, but they're only playing the under-18, so if we go, we'll have a look later on towards like a more of a game, which is in the league maybe, you'll probably see a recovery day. But yeah, so be mindful of the intensity of kind of what's going to happen. You can see the injury risk, the condition, the fatigue, the sharpness, and the happiness. It will also give you an indication of kind of any happiness that's going to, you know, you'll see the happiness is slightly increased that day because maybe they're doing physical, tactical outfield. You'll see that some conditions is reduced. Obviously, the condition is greatly reduced because you're doing 3 training sessions in one day. Again, the injury risk will become greatly increased because you are doing 3 training sessions in one day. Of course, we'll go on to the schedules in a second, but we'll just go through the hub. So you'll see the training happiness as well. You'll see if anyone is content with your training, and you'll see if anyone's unhappy. So if you've got unhappy players, they will give you a reason of why they're unhappy, and maybe it's just too much workload on that player. So bear that in mind as well. Again, you've got your training performance, so you'll get a list here of who is performing and who is, you'll get this in your inbox as well. You tend to see this come through weekly in your inbox. But you'll see who's not developing in training, so maybe you need to look at that player individually of why he's not developing. If you look at your medical center, so this is a good overview of course who's at risk regarding training. So you've got 30 players at risk currently. It will give you more of the information as you go through the season. I've only just started this save, so that's probably why. And then you've got match preparation. So it says special focus has been planned for the following areas ahead of the match against Stoke in 9 days. So teamwork, of course, we're in pre-season, so that's the kind of stuff that you want to be doing in pre-season is teamwork, because that's generally the time of year where you'll bring in a lot of new players, a lot of new faces. So you need to get the teamwork up and running before, obviously, the start of the season. This should all be done. Your whole schedules and training should be done on day one of starting the game. Because obviously, if you want to rely on the assistant, that's fine. But if you want to get it, so you're happy with it for the entire season, you can do a lot if you do it yourself. That's what I'm saying. You'll see the training session breakdown as well just here. So you've got 8 on general training, 2 on match preparation, and 1 on extracurricular as well. So it gives you a little pie chart of kind of, what you're currently training, the training sessions are breaking down to. But yeah, that is the training hub. The next thing I want to focus on and show you about is units. So units, you will need to, this will kind of determine, so there's 3 units. There's goalkeeping unit, defensive unit, and attacking units. So obviously you want to put the players, by default the players should already be in there. But if you're playing more of a, more of attacking wing-back style formation, then you want to consider your defensive unit. So for example, a very extremely attacking wing-back would probably want to go into the attacking unit section. So you need to kind of decide, obviously you should have made the tactic before you come onto your training, decide what kind of style you want to play that season, and then obviously put in your players into the units. But of course, if you've got if you are, say, a team in the Premier League, you're a few years into the save now, you've got some potential coming through, you can actually add and remove under 18s into the units so they can train with the first team schedules. So that will massively help their development, which is absolutely brilliant. So example, you'll see add or remove Notts County under 18s. We go to offensive unit, and then we can see, who's currently in the offensive units in the under 18s. Of course, you could always go and look at the under 18s yourself, but again, all the names are here of all your under 18s, and you can put them into the units to fit how your formation will be played. Okay, the favourite thing now is schedules. So if you're, obviously the schedules, like I said at the start of the video, go on to kind of you do it weekly. So you can set weekly schedules for your whole season if you wanted to. So if you press select schedule, so you go to the schedules tab, press select schedule, you can actually do it based on training styles, scenarios, tactical styles, and pre-season. So if you press pre-season, of course you'll get like a light, early, mid, late, so light, early, light, mid, and light, late pre-season. You can do a normal, early, mid, late, heavy, early, mid, late, tactical, early, mid, late, technical, early, mid, late. So you can always, depending on what you want to focus on, if you've got a brand new team and you really got to get the fitness up, of course, you could go a heavy kind of on the early start of pre-season. So once you select this, you'll press, say if you've got one match in that week. So if you've got one match in that week of the heavy on the early pre-season, you press one match, and it'll give you an indication of your kind of risk, condition, fatigue, sharpness, team cohesion, and happiness at the top. So as you can see, by doing a heavy early where there's one match, you'll see that the injury risk is really high. The condition is, the players will see significant reductions in their condition, but the sharpness will improve, the team cohesion will improve, and the happiness will improve, because obviously they're doing a lot of training sessions together. They're doing 3 pretty much almost every day apart from the Saturday and Sunday. So you can also see, of course, like I said, the intensity factors will be very, very high. Of course, your match is just here, which we selected. There was one match in a heavy pre-season schedule. Of course, that is always going to be high intensity. They will, of course, have the recovery session straight after, where there's just a recovery. There's no intensity whatsoever, so they can recover from the full week and the match of training. And again, just before, they'll do a match preview. They'll do overall team training, but the few days before that, Monday to Thursday, they will essentially go all out in terms of the goalkeeper's defence and attack. So you can kind of choose your schedule as you want. So there's a lot to go through. And it's not just pre-season. So, of course, you've got your pre-season here. If you want to lie, you're not bringing any players in. Your match sharpness and your fitness is quite high. you particularly don't need to do a heavy preseason. You could select just the light early and press. You've got 2 matches in a week. You've got a light early. Let's press 2 matches. You'll see here that the intensity, of course, is very high on the game match days. You'll have a recovery after every day of the match, where there's no intensity. Of course, on the Wednesday, you will do a bit of training, overall training after. But yeah, you can kind of set these. Of course, you can change these if you wish, and you can make your own schedules. I would advise you to, give it have a little play around in terms of your schedules. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. It's kind of, you have to kind of figure it out yourself based on your team. It's impossible for me to give you a schedule based on Notts County because all the players are different. It all comes down to the players, the work rate, the technical stats, the mental stats, the physical stats of what you're training them. So you can see, not only can you do pre-season, you could also do tactical styles. So if you've got a tactical style that you selected from the presets on your tactic, you're going to do a gegenpress. You can press gegenpress, and you can do, if you've got 1 match a week, so you could do that. There's your gegenpress. So you can see they will select schedules based on kind of the gegenpress tactic, which is really good. I don't know if many of you knew that, but you can do that. Looking at the next one, you've got also scenario. So a scenario, you've got a big match coming up. You've got the Champions League final. You can do a big match preparation if you've got 1 match. So you're focusing that week purely on that game, which is right here. You're having penalties the day before. You're looking at your delivery. You're looking at your attacking shadow play, your defensive shadow play. There's so many schedules that you can have a little play around with and just base it off your fixtures list. You've got your calendar just here, which gives you the entire season of your fixtures list. Set your schedules up. I know a lot of people like doing this, but I'm just trying to help the people who think it's a little bit too much and you just don't know where to start. Now, I wasn't the best at training probably 2 years ago, but I've just started watching and looking at lots of guides, seeing what people do, and I've kind of picked it up myself as I've been doing it myself last year with a lot of training. But again, you've also got fixture congestion as well. So fixture congestion, there will be them weeks where you've got 3 games if you are in the Champions League, and you're playing a League Cup game as well, where you've got 3 matches right here. You can't afford to do much training on that situation. You wouldn't have training 3 times a day because you just can't do it. You'll get injuries. Your players will be extremely unfit. They'll start declining. They'll start becoming unhappy, and then that's the problem. The idea is to keep your players happy. So yeah, you can do fixture congestion as well. You could also do a boot camp. So if you need to, you're in pre-season and you've got a pre-season friendly match, but your team is so unfit, you can do a boot camp where the intensity will be very, very high. But of course, the condition and the sharpness will come up. The team cohesion will come up. Sorry, the condition will go down, of course, because obviously it's a high intensity boot camp. But you need to get the match sharpness up and team cohesion and happiness. Surprisingly, a boot camp will make them happy, which I find a little bit strange. But that's just that. Like I say, it does give you indications of what is what as well. So a much harder training schedule for use during the season that almost resembles a pre-season workload. So you can do this on pre-season, and you can also do this during the season. So if you find that the sharpness starts to drop on a lot of your players, you can do that during the season as well if you wanted to. Let's go on to the next one. So you've got a full week of rest. So if your players are getting injured left, right, and centre, you've got players are so unfit, and you just need a full week of rest because they are drained, they're unhappy, you can give them a full week of rest. If you was to select that, you could of course just select the whole rest days if you wanted to do that. Of course, this would kind of be done after the pre-season, after the season's finished, when you go on holiday and stuff like that. But that is the schedules. Let's have a look at another one as well. So you can do a training style. So if you want to do like defense training, possession training, so if you want to base your tactic, if your tactic's an attacking style tactic, you don't really want to focus too much on your defense. Of course, you still want to focus on your defense, but primarily you want to focus on attack. So you can do that as well, which is really good. And of course, there is an option to create your own schedule. So when you load this screen up, it will give you, so for example, on a Monday, if we wanted to do outfield training, we could do outfield training. It will give you kind of impacts just here. It will give you kind of the attributes that it will focus on, the tactical familiarity, the team cohesion. It will give you all the information on this part, but that's for the goalkeepers. But of course, If you look at it, it will give you some risks as well. So you've got a slightly increased for injury risk. The condition slightly reduced. Of course, if you're struggling with your team bonding and your morale's quite low, you could go to community outreach. So time devoted to connecting with the local community and performing charitable duties conducted as a team. Attributes, again, that will improve your teamwork. The condition will slightly be reduced because they're not actually training on the training pitch, and the team cohesion will be slightly increased. So as a unit, they'll be working better together. Of course, you can just do a team bonding where they go to social activities in which the whole team participates. Of course, because they're not on the training pitch doing actual training, the condition will be reduced, the fatigue will be reduced, the happiness will be greatly increased, which, a lot of people didn't know that. Team cohesion will be increased, and again, some attributes, teamwork will be increased on their attributes. Again, you can focus on your set pieces, but we'll come on to set pieces in a second. But yeah, that is the schedule. So just have a little play around. There's no right or wrong way of doing this. I mean, there's a wrong way of doing this if you completely mess up, but you learn from your mistakes. Once you get it in your head what your team want, it's going to take you a few months before you can get a full happy team. And, once you do, it's a really good feeling that your training schedules are working. Over the course of FM20, I will be bringing out a lot of training schedules. If you guys want me to do that, and I'll focus them on certain teams and stuff like that. But if you guys want me to do that, let me know in the comments. So for FM20 on the schedules, they have added 3 new training sessions, which is really good. They've added attacking overlap, which is just here. You can see all the information. So that is a new feature on the training sessions for FM20. They have added defending from the front. So if you press this, you can see all the stats, the attributes, the risks and stuff like that, the kind of impacts. And they have also now added play from the back, which is really, really good as a technical point of view, in terms of defending and attacking, ball-playing defenders, that type of stuff. So that's really, really exciting. But that is the schedules. Any questions, let me know in the comments. The next thing I want to talk about is mentoring. Now, this is kind of changed in previous versions. Mentoring is a little bit more confusing now. There's a lot of things changed for FM19 and FM20. So, mentoring, of course, is your old version of the thing where you could tutor the players. Obviously, if you right-click the player, you can try and tutor him in a meeting with another younger player. But in terms of mentoring, so there's 2 options. There's 2 ways to do this. So you go to your mentoring group and you can ask your assistant to choose your mentoring. So the things you need to look for is your kind of hierarchy, your squad dynamics, so your hierarchy and your social groups. So your hierarchy in terms of team leaders is the type of people or players that will have more of an effect on the younger players. So, if you've got 1 team leader plus 3 highly influential players, that's a great... If you've got 3 team leaders, perfect. You can make 3 groups of players who kind of play in the similar position would be ideal. But of course, players must be in the same squad to mentor one another, and each group must consist of at least 3 players. But again, you can just kind of look through your social groups, see who's missing out. Obviously, they can trade PPMs, which is like player traits, and of course, personality traits can be passed on as well around. There's no kind of definitive answer of how these are passed over. You just have, it's a lot of tests, it's a lot of luck. I'm not saying if you mentor your younger player is going to have the best personality in the game. It could take 6 months, it could take 2 years. So you can ask your assistant to assign these for you. Of course, you can make these yourself. But if you press Ask Assistant to Assign, you'll notice, as you've noticed right here, I mean, it's not done a bad job of that. You'll see the personality just here. You'll see kind of the hierarchy. So as long as you've got 1 team leader in one of them groups and a highly influential player, another highly influential player, and a influential player, kind of classing as the other players. So, you've got the age, you've got the youth. 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 Now, necessarily, age doesn't matter as long as this player is kind of a team leader or a highly influential player. He might have an ability to pass, of course, his personality and, improve the player, determination, all that type of stuff. But don't forget, determination does sometimes drop. There is an overall factor on determination in the entire squad. So if you pick a player who's got 20 determination and you notice his determination drops to 19, there is an overall factor. So determination is based on the entire squad's attributes in terms of determination. So don't panic too much. I've had it before when my determination's dropped. So yeah, it's a good starting point. Like I say, if one's a professional and a social leader of the group with several younger up and coming players, play them in the similar position, put them in the similar position of mentoring groups, and you'll be good to go. In terms of mentoring, there's not really much else I can tell you about. Again, you can do this yourself, but if you want to bring some, obviously, under-19s into the first team, it's always best to have the under-19s, in the first team, and then just play them, put them in the groups have them training in the schedules that you've made. It's quite hard to explain. So I've put your under 19, your highest potential players in your first team. Have them training with your first team and also mentored by your first team. It will help their development. So, if you've got a guy, so for example, I don't know, I haven't looked at the player, but this Ramey Campbell, if he's in the under 19s, of course, he's not doing the schedules with the first team, but he's been trained by a first team player, mentored by a first team player. So again, try and get them all in one group. So have them doing the schedules, have them mentoring as well on top of that, and that will massively help you out. So moving on to individual training now. So you'll see the individual training screen right here. This will kind of determine the attributes that will be developed by your additional focus on your individual training. So you'll see this screen right here, and you'll see so this is the type of place where if you want to change a role of somebody. So if you've got a centre midfielder who has got the attributes to become a box-to-box, maybe his tackling is a little bit low, but this is where you would set that player. So let's just use Jimmy O'Brien as an example. So at the minute he is currently, you'll see right here, if you press this little button, under this position role duty, you'll see he is natural kind of deep line, almost a deep line playmaker. He is natural deep line playmaker defend. So that is his natural role. But if you're wanting to actually train him in a box-to-box, you just press that and he will start to develop the attributes to become a box-to-box midfielder. Over time, by playing him, of course, in that position will help. This won't mean that he will become... He has to play at that box-to-box role to become fully established at that role down the line. So this is just going to work on the attributes. And on the right-hand side, it will highlight the attributes for a box-to-box midfielder on support in this instance. So, this is also where you can do player traits. So if you're wanting to discuss a player trait and add something, so if you've got a centre midfielder, if you've got a striker who you want to try and lob the keeper on one-on-ones, this is where you would do that, and of course you will do that under finishing training for that player. And you'll have a little meeting. Sometimes the coach will tell you if that's not the right decision based on his attributes. Sometimes you can listen. You could try that anyway, but player traits do take around 6 to 7 months, if not longer, to try. And you will get a message saying the player has failed to learn this trait, or you'll get a message saying the player has passed. But that is player traits. We'll come into that in another video because I've got a video planned for that I want to talk to you about regarding player traits and the best ones to go for, the worst ones to go for, and kind of that kind of stuff. So yeah, of course, once you've done your position role duty, what I tend to do is I tend to go through every single player, ensure that player is on his position role duty in terms of my tactics. So if I'm playing ball-playing defenders, I don't want my centre-back playing as a centre-back like that, a central defender on cover, because that is only going to train him on the attributes for obviously that position. So I would then change that to ball-playing defender on defend, and that will start, of course, working on his first touch, working on his tackling, working on his technique, working on things that he needs to develop as a ball-playing defender. Again, you can set your additional focus. So in this tab, you can kind of choose. So once you press, so if we're going to do the ball-playing defender, for example, and we want to do, let's say, strength, it's not got enough strength, this will highlight in blue the additional focus that it's going to work on. Of course, you can set the intensity levels. You will get a recommendation from your physio, so it's very important to have very good physios and very good sports scientists as well for your fitness. But it will recommend kind of what intensity you want to do the additional focus at. Bear in mind, if you're doing a high intensity schedule for your training, and on top of that you're doing additional focus at high intensity, the chances are the player is going to become very unhappy with his training. So bear in mind, you can see the individual training workload just here. If I was to set that to double intensity, that would obviously mean he would be really going ahead for that strength. Again, it all depends on his attributes as a player and whether he can do this. But again, bring a good sports scientist in, bring a good physio in, and bring a good assistant manager in. They will all help you in terms of these decisions. Again, if you want to look at other things, there is other things you can do. For example, quickness. As a ball-playing defender, he would need to have pace and acceleration. So additional focus would be acceleration and pace. Make sure you judge their attributes over the course of the season and see how they get on. The way you can do this, not many people look at this graph. So if I was to press Nathan Tyson and I go to development and then go to progress, you can see that's just confused me a little bit because that's just changed. It never said progress before. So that's a new thing on FM20 that I just realized. So you can actually select an attribute based on, obviously they've got nothing at the moment, but if you was training acceleration, you can see based on the decimal point of how much they improve over 3 months. So 1 minute they might be on 6, like for example, acceleration for Nathan Tyson is 14. He might be on 14.2, and he could go to 14.6, which would turn him into a 15, by the way. So it all goes on your decimal points. But have a look through this screen on your save, see who's been declining, see who's been developing, see if the additional focus is working. Of course, you need to make sure you have the coaches for that type of training as well. Again, you've got a rest period just here that you could do, so you can change all your rest period around this point. But that's quite self-explanatory. I don't need to go through that much with you. And then of course you've got your coaches, so you could edit your coaching assignments and you can select your coaches which you prefer to work on. So if you only got a few coaches, of course, I mean, you can remove them all and then select them yourself in terms of I will do shot stopping, but of course it will give you a star based on that, what your coaches are. This is where you add the term 5-star coaches. So once you press ask assistant to sign, you'll see, for example, Eric Svensson is very good at quickness, so he's going to be focusing on that. Of course, as well, this is more of a tip for lower league saves, because you can't get that many coaches, it's quite difficult. Make sure you utilize your under 23 coaches. Even though you've got nobody in the under 23s, make sure you bring some in if you can, as cheap as you can, because they will help with the first team training. So that is a big tip. Not many people knew that as well. So let me know in the comments if you've enjoyed this video. This is essentially a quick guide on a few things regarding training. I can go in depth so much in terms of the schedules and stuff and the schedules that I use. But again, I want you guys to have a little play around. Let me know in the comments if you plan on giving it a go this season. You know, start with one of the bigger clubs, give it a go. But this has been Jamie. This has been a training guide for FM20, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye, everybody.